for today, we're going to go over the grievances that the founding fathers of this nation had documented in their declaration to be independent from the British Crown, and all the all the blue highlighted words are the ones that I want you to add to your vocabulary. And let's try to read this. Let's try to get this done in. Let's see. Let's do about 6 minutes. See if we can get this done in 6 minutes. And then we're going to discuss it afterwards. All right. All right. So, continuing from last time, it said, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such disillusions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in so this is a semicolon, it's a continuation. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without, that means outside, and convolutions from within. I forgot to highlight this word. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising conditions of new appropriations of the land, or of lands, not the land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing to assent to laws for establishing judicial powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. And it says comma. All right, so this is a list for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murderers which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits by trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English law in our neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for including the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with powers to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicted government here, By declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us, he has plundered our seas and ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with the circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their own country, to become the executioners of their friends, brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is undistinguishable destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They have two. Look at, see, I'm adding words. When you reading this long, you kind of lose focus. So stay on track. They have too been deaf to the voices of justice and consanguinity. I forgot how to say that word. All right. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and holds them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Okay, that should be a comma right here. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from any allegiance to the British Crown and to all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Okay, so that is that. That took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but it's okay. You know, we're reading for enrichment and practice, and for your further enrichment, these are all the people that signed off on this document. These were all the original 13 colonies: Georgia, Maryland, Delaware, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Virginia, New York, Rhode Island, South Carolina, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. Anywhere you see new, there was an old. Okay, so like York, there's a York in Europe. Jersey, there's a Jersey in Europe. Hampshire, there's a Hampshire in Europe. Okay. Carolina is the land of Charles, I believe. It was named after King Charles. Georgia, King George, one of the King Georges. Okay. Virginia. I think it was Queen. It's Queen Elizabeth or Charlotte. I can't remember, but Virginia means the land of the Virgin Queen. You know, she was a virgin allegedly. All right, so these are all the people. This guy John Hancock, that's the guy that's been made famous for when somebody says, "Let me get your signature," or they'll say, "Let me have your John Hancock." We have Thomas Jefferson. We're gonna touch on him later. He was from Virginia. And Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania. He was an inventor and a polymath. They said that Thomas Jefferson was the most intelligent amongst all these men. That's legend. Legend has it. Samuel Adams. This is the guy the beer was named after. And yeah, the rest of these guys I've never heard of, but I think it's worth looking up these people for a book report if you want to give your child something to do this summer. Just research one of these people, especially if you're in these states. All right, so